A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. As-salatu wassalamu ala rasulihil kareem. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa habibina wa shafi'ina wa maulana Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. My dear respected sisters and brothers in Islam and in humanity, may the peace and blessings of Almighty Allah be with you and members of your family, as we bid you Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome once again to another edition of Our Jamaat's Our Land here on IBN Channel 8. This is a weekly presentation seen every Sunday morning at this time and replayed for you on a Saturday morning also at 11 o'clock, where we seek to pass on important messages and inspirational messages and important pieces of information to all Imams and all Jamaats throughout Trinidad and Tobago. As you know, there are over 100 Jamaats in our country, and we firmly believe that if we all follow the same ideology, the same beliefs and the same practices, one day, inshallah, we shall all be flying under the same flag of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. We say Alhamdulillah, all praise and thanks to Almighty Allah, who continues to keep this station on air for the benefit of the Muslim community here in Trinidad and Tobago and wherever this broadcast is seen or heard. In this regard, we have to thank and salute Brother Inshan Ismail, Brother Hasib Majid, and all members of staff here at IBN who continue to work very hard to ensure that this station remains on air every second of every minute, of every hour, of every day, of every week, of every month, of every year for so many years, dealing with the deen of Almighty Allah and bringing people together for the cause of Almighty Allah and Islam in our country. Your reward is with Almighty Allah. We also have to thank those of you at home and our financial supporters, our advertisers, and all those who help out the station. May Almighty Allah accept your reward and grant you Jannah, inshallah. Taking a look at our Islamic calendar, we would see that we are in the Islamic year 1444. We are coming to the end of the third month of Rabiul Awal. We just have a couple days to go to end this month of Rabiul Awal. Remember, this is the month in which was born our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, the 29th of Rabiul Awal is on Wednesday, the 26th of October. And on that evening, we have to look out for the new moon, which will indicate the end of the month of Rabiul Awal and the beginning of the fourth month of the Islamic calendar, the month of Rabiul Akhir. And according to our calendar, we should be able to see the moon. So we expect more than likely that the first of Rabiul Akhir should be on Thursday, the 27th of October, inshallah. May Almighty Allah make it easy for you and all members of your family. Now, on our program today, brothers and sisters, we have a very interesting and important program to get through today. Everyone in Trinidad and Tobago, every single Muslim in our country knows about the Anjuman Sunnatul Jamaat Association, which is the largest single Muslim association in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's supposed to be controlling several masjids throughout Trinidad and Tobago. It is going through some special times, interesting times, and we have here with us on our program today a very distinguished member of the Anjuman Sunnatul Jamaat Association. We say Assalamu alaikum to former Speaker of the House of Representatives and former Vice President of the ASJA, Haji Nizam Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, Haji.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
So how are things going with the ASJA?
Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa la akibatu lil muttaqeen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa ahli baytihi wa azwajihi wa dhurriyyatihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Alhamdulillah. We say praise and thanks to Almighty Allah for affording us this privilege to be with you in this studio on your program, which you have been hosting for quite a while now, and that has been attracting a lot of viewers, and you have been doing yeoman service to our Muslim community. We praise and thank Allah, and we congratulate you for that. We thank our brother Inshan Ismail and our brother Hasib Majid for for assisting in making this arrangement so that I can be with you on this program with the hope that we will be here for
subsequent programs.
Because we are in a situation in the Anjuman Sunnatul Jamaat Association where we need the help of IBN, and all of you have promised that you will be doing whatever you can do to assist us. Unfortunately, the Anjuman has fallen into a situation where we need a revival. We need reformation within the organization. We need to reconstruct the organization. And we have decided that we will come together and we, in the spirit of Islam and in the spirit of the love that Islam advocates, that we will come together as a community and we will resolve our differences and see whether we can put the Anjuman on the strong footing that it was in the early days when individuals like you and me were little boys growing up. And we regarded the Anjuman Sunnatul Jamaat as the premier organization in this country with very astute and influential, impressive leadership.
Oh, Haji and Sam, you mentioned something there about resolving differences in a very amicable, in an amicable way, without acrimony or problems. Let's go to that into some detail, because that is an important part. If you want to change people and change their attitude, it has to be done within the tenets of Islam. What can you tell us about that, the teachings of Islam, in terms of resolving our differences?
There is an ongoing High Court action involving the members of the Anjuman and the executive of the Anjuman in the High Court. And that High Court action is pending. And there are several individuals who are involved as parties to that High Court action. Recently, within the last year or so, I became involved in my capacity as an attorney, and I am representing 3 members of the current executive. And what they are contending is that the last election was held under a constitution that was never validated by the General Assembly of the Anjuman Sunnatul Jamaat Association. And as a result of that, that election was null and void. I was present and I witnessed what took place, and it is very disheartening to say that even the method that was utilized in the election of officers of the Anjuman was disgraceful, to say the least, in the sense that there came individuals, including some imams. They came together with a slate of with names of individuals, as if, you know, these are the things that happen with the Steel Band Association in Trinidad and Tobago and the Calypsonians Association. They came with a slate, and once they read out that slate, they had everything fixed, and anyone whose name was not included on that prepared slate, they were excluded and they were defeated in that election.
So there's a difference of opinion in terms of the actual structure of the ASJA now. Those 3 members you talk about, they are saying that it is illegal, unconstitutional. That's what they're saying?
Yes. And because not because of that slate issue, I'm just showing you how the distance or the situation in which the Anjuman has found itself. But the constitution under which the elections were held, up to today, the current executive cannot tell us when, give us the particulars as to when that constitution was ratified. In other words, the Anjuman was reduced to a one-man show, and all of these others were going along with that. And this is one of the sad situations in which we find ourselves. You know, we are not close enough to our organizations, and in this case, our religious organizations, and in this case, the Anjuman Sunnatul Jamaat Association. people like me have to take that blame for not immediately standing up against what took place.
Yeah.
They loaned two trustees, Haji Afzal Mohammed, deceased, an imam from Princestown, may Allah bless his soul,
Bonanza.
and another Ismail Mohammed. He has gone and one is remaining. Both of them said that they are taking this matter to court. And people like me, we refrain from interfering. But as we say, when water became more than flour, then I said something had to be done, and a number of others agreed with me. But in any situation, you would have, any situation that you are examining, you will have blame.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, our approach to rectify this situation is that we should not waste our time pointing fingers and blaming this one and blaming that one and blaming the other. We accept that we are in a mess. How do we get ourselves outside of that mess? All believers are brothers.
Yeah.
All believers are brothers.
What do you think should be done? You mentioned something was on the court, before the court.
Yes.
What is the status of that action?
The judge says, people like me ought to know that matters of this nature cannot be resolved by the courts. These matters must be resolved by the members of the community. I knew that.
Yeah.
But we have to have the proper mindset. So what I did, I promised the judge that I will do all in my power to see how we can work this thing out. And I prepared a working paper.
Right.
And the introduction to that working paper are quotations from Quran and from Sunnah.
Right.
In other words, to establish the mindset that we must have
That's right.
as we are approaching this exercise. And we have formed ourselves into a committee that is called the ASJA Agenda for Reform.
Right.
And this is our approach, these basic principles. O you who have believed, obey Allah and obey the messenger and those in authority among you. And if you disagree over anything, refer it to Allah and the messenger, if you should believe in Allah and the last day. This is the best way and best in result.
Yeah.
Referring a matter to Allah and his messenger, what does it mean? Quran and Sunnah. All Muslims know that. And we go on to say, chapter 49:10, the believers are but a single brotherhood, so make peace and reconciliation between your two contending brothers, and fear Allah that ye may receive mercy. This group of us, including some imams already, we are going out to the various jamaats and we are begging our imams, listen, we do not want you to get into a fight with anybody. Let us move the acrimony and the animosity, move that from our hearts.
That's right.
We are doing this. Let us understand why we are doing what we are doing. We are seeking the pleasure of Allah. We are doing this for the Muslim community. We are doing this for the improvement of ourselves. Because in my time, I think it was in the 1980s, when I was the first vice president of the Anjuman Sunnatul Jamaat Association, we were talking about 75, 80 jamaats. Now we can hardly rely on 30 solid jamaats. The regional councils are not functioning as they ought to function. The Anjuman reduced itself into a situation where all they were concerned about is spending money received from the government concerning the subventions we get from the government to run the schools. And they abandoned the jamaats, and the jamaats just took a backseat.
So what has been the response of the Jamaats that you have encountered so far?
So far we are talking, and when we are explaining and we are giving people the details of what has happened, people are surprised. They do not know. There has been a total breakdown in communication between the current executive of the Anjuman and the majority of the Jamaats. And to put it bluntly, they cannot face the Jamaats because they have withered and restricted themselves into a small clique, into a small group.
Over the years, I have always been hearing about the Imams Council of the ASJA. What is the status of the Imams Council in this regard?
The majority of the Imams do not want to get into anything that is confrontational or controversial.
Yeah.
One can understand that. But you have certain Imams who, when we tell them, you are duty bound to follow Quran, and you are duty bound to recite in your heart, enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong. And you still have those Imams who will blindfold themselves to that basic principle. And they know that things are wrong. You know for how many years the Anjuman has not had audited accounts?
Oh, that's another issue.
That's a big issue. That's a big issue. But you have to do things step by step.
Yeah.
Therefore, what we have done, the lawyers have spoken. You have 3 different sets of lawyers because 3 parties are involved in this matter. You have 3 different sets of lawyers. And we have come together and we have agreed on the establishment of a Constitution Review Committee.
Do you know can you tell us some of the names involved in that committee?
I would love to, but only within the last 2 weeks we have served the instruments of appointment, and it might be a little premature.
Okay, fair
All
enough.
I can tell you, Brother Jamal, it is a committee that the average member of the Muslim community, when you hear those names, you will be convinced that this is a genuine attempt to clean up the mess that we all are responsible for.
Yeah.
All of us are responsible for.
No,
And I assure you, inshallah, that this committee is going to produce for us a constitution, because after we had a constitution around 2000, several constitutions were done up and not a single one. Members of the executive kept asking, why don't we print the constitution that we are working on and give to imams and give to members of the Anjuman? They are entitled to this. Give to the executive members.
That's the basic premise.
It never happened for over almost 2 decades. It never happened.
Okay. So I see you have published here, the supporters of the view that the following should be addressed as a matter of urgency: the production of a new constitution for the ASJA.
Yes, those are several, and that is where we are at the moment.
Right.
There's where we are at the moment. We are now, there have all been 8 members in that Constitution Review Committee.
So work is ongoing right now.
Work is ongoing, very actively so.
Right.
And they will be using the ASJA Girls College conference room as their base. And we are hoping that when they decide how they are going to handle their exercise, how they are going to discharge their responsibility, we are hoping that they will go out and they will have face-to-face meeting with Jamaats, regions, imams, whoever, individuals, and such persons who are interested. If they need help and they have a contribution to make with respect to recommendations for a new constitution, we are going to help them, and we will help them to even make presentations. But we want to get the entire body involved in this exercise.
What does the present ASJA constitution say about amending or changing your constitution if you come up with a new one? What has to be done?
What has to be done? You you get your draft and you send it around to the various organs in the Anjuman, regional councils, Jamaats mainly, and you organize what is called a general assembly, where you have imams and delegates coming from the various Jamaats, and at a meeting like that, you meet for the specific purpose of considering the draft and adopting it.
Right.
When that is adopted, then it becomes legal.
Right. And I see you have free and fair elections pursuant to the provisions of the new constitution.
Yes. First of all, we in this working paper, we suggested that we must have the production of a new constitution. That is well on its way,
Right.
and that is emanating out of an out-of-court settlement,
Right.
while the High Court is pending. The High Court action is pending, okay? The other thing is we have to ratify and adopt
Right.
such a
You just mentioned
constitution.
that, yeah.
Then under that constitution, we must have free and fair elections.
Right.
Free and fair elections that does not mean that we are going to follow the pattern of the Steel Bands Association or the Calypsonian Association in Trinidad and Tobago, and you present slates.
Yeah.
You know, you look for the best individuals in the Muslim community
Yeah.
who are not there for self and who would make a contribution towards the community and this nation at large.
Are you suggesting at this moment, Haji Nizam, that the present executive of the ASJA, they are unconstitutional?
Of course, they are illegal.
And what has been their response to all of these
They
activities?
have not, up to today, they have not admitted to the court that they are there unconstitutionally and therefore they are there illegally. But in the same breath, they have not produced a single shred of evidence to show that the constitution under which they are operating
Is valid.
was ratified, is valid.
Right.
It is legal. It was ratified by a General Assembly. If so, on what date? At what meeting? When did this happen?
So they have been unable to provide that information.
They have not been able because none of that took place.
And the imams of the Imams Council, I see you have here identifying imams who possess the integrity and ability to assist in mobilizing the general membership, which is now woefully splintered.
Yes,
The
the
role
whole
of the
community
imam.
is splintered, and the whole community is very disenchanted with what has taken place. But you have a handful of imams who are in this executive who believe that imams must run this organization. And it's a mere handful, you know. A mere handful. Imams must run these organizations as if they do not have sufficient responsibility for running their own jamaats and producing successors. There are imams in umpteen jamaats. When you hear they close their eyes, not a single person to take their place within their jamaat. Very, very, very unfortunate. This has happened in the past. These are things that we have to correct. Imams, the first duty of an imam is to look after his congregation, to ensure that you have an educational system within and you have all the social infrastructure to ensure that you have a vibrant community. But I'm telling you, you could name them and perhaps you can count them on one hand, right? Some of them do not have a jamaat under their control. They cannot hold a jamaat under their control, but they are at the helm of the Imams Council. And you have imams who will stay quiet because they are quiet and pious people and so on. And there are others who know what is happening is wrong and they will not open their mouths and correct it.
Give us your definition and your understanding of what an independent ASJA is. What does that mean?
An independent ASJA means when you have free and fair elections, when you have proper representation across the board, people who comprise the executive, people who comprise the officers of the regional councils, And imams who have, as I say, the integrity and the honesty, you know, they must be remember when they're going on that on that member every Friday, and they are telling us that we must enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong, and that we must adhere to Quran and Sunnah, and that our beloved Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace, he has advised us that when in a hadith, that when something is wrong, it is wrong. What do? You change it with your hands. If you do not have the courage to change it with your hands, you speak out about it. And they are our chief spokespersons.
Yeah.
Because they are speaking every Friday on the mimbar. And if that you cannot even do that, you condemn it in your heart. But those who stay silent and condemn it in their heart, our beloved Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace, he says that is the weakest of faith.
Yeah.
So we want to see if we can have the strongest of faith, where people can come together and we change with our hands, but we do it with love. No hard feelings, no pointing of fingers. We do not want any bacchanal. Right?
Confrontation.
Yeah. I see one or two senior people, you know, and the way they get on and they speak, you wonder whether they're following what they're following. And some of them go on the member.
Yeah.
And we tolerate that, Brother Jamal.
This is our Jamaat, our land here on IBN Channel 8. Today on our program, we are speaking about the ASJA and the agenda for reform, and our special guest is Haji Nizam Mohammed. It's time for us to take a break. Stay with us. We shall be right back with some more interesting discussions on our program. Stay with us.